Good evening and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. I am your host, Adam Thornton, and we are hopefully live across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for tonight's first flagship of the season. Joining me is David Edgar. David, how are you?
Uncomfortable. As you know, I don't like doing videos, and in the spirit of compromise inherent in me, therefore, 11, 12 years in, we haven't done any live video things. But I'm here. I'm even wearing the shirt and everything. So, but if anybody says you've got a face for podcasts, I know that's why I don't do these. But Adam insisted, so here I am.
Yeah, and we've got a TikTok as well, don't we? We're actually moving into is that the 21st century? I'm not too sure.
I've given up on life, clearly. But we do. We have a TikTok and we have all that other good stuff.
All that jazz.
Disgrace,
and we've also got Cammy Bell with us. Cammy, hello. That's a lovely backdrop you've got behind you. How's things?
All good. Thank you for having me on. I will make my excuses early doors for the fact that I am 3 weeks into a new house and done absolutely no decorating. So, yes, very much a plain pastiche that I've got going on here as well. And I've been on this podcast long enough that I remember when we used to call it the Facebook. So the fact that we're doing this now and going on to all these different platforms absolutely blows my mind. So, yes, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we've been doing this for... Well, you guys have been doing it for a lot longer than me, but it is still a little bit nerve-wracking when you try something different. So please bear with us. We will see how things go. Here we've got our first comment. Robert Crawford has said, "Thanks, guys, for the live chat listening from Bari, South Italy." Welcome, Robert. Hope you're enjoying it. We will get some comments coming through. We'll try our best to manage them as they come through. Like I said, it is very new for us, but we can see the viewers starting to creep up, so that's good news. We'll just get on with it. So, David, first game of the season on Saturday. I wasn't there. I was on holiday, but I did manage to watch it. Much to my wife's annoyance.
You were in Italy?
I was in Italy, yeah, in Bologna, but much to my wife's annoyance, I managed to disappear for 2 hours. I just claimed because I'm blonde and bald and it was the hottest time of the day, it was really for everybody's safety if I went back to the hotel room with a couple of beers. So that's what I did. But you made the trip through. You were impressed. What were your thoughts, I guess, pre-game with the lineup that came out? What were your initial thoughts on that one?
I think there were only two questions going into the match about who was... I'm looking at Warwick Davis here. Honestly, I can't believe you're making me do this. There were only two questions for me going into the game. Was one, who would be in goals, and two, who would be at centre back. I think the rest of the team, given the injury situation, kind of picked itself. And the big decision straight away was that it was John McLaughlin who was chosen ahead of Alan McGregor. That doesn't mean, incidentally, that I think that decision is a permanent or a complete one. I'd feel more confident speaking about that after tomorrow night, after we have a look and see, because I can certainly see the manager turning to Alan McGregor. I don't think John McLaughlin had an awful lot to do. You can possibly talk, and we will, about his positioning for the first goal. You could also argue that he quite understandably didn't expect those two mistakes that happened very quickly in front of him. And in terms then of the centre-back thing, I wondered if maybe James Sands would get the nod. John Souttar got the nod. And I can understand that as well, because a big forward who had a terrific game, incidentally. Nobly was superb. But I think the manager would think, well, John has played in this league. He is from the SPFL. And I thought that he might therefore get the nod, but he didn't, and he did give the nod to Souttar, and I'm sure we're going to discuss the outcome of that. But I would look, like everybody else, I needed a break at the end of last season. It was a long season, but raring to go, and there's nothing like turning up first game of the season. You know, the Bears were arriving, and of course, Livy being Livy, it's three stands are Rangers fans, and then in the home end it's full of Rangers fans, so it's kind of like a home away from home.
Yeah, it's quite surreal. Cammy, David mentioned it there, but Alexander McDonald has jumped in on the Facebook to say he thinks McGregor will be in goals tomorrow night. It's going to be quite interesting. I don't think this is going to go away, regardless of if McLaughlin makes a mistake, and we'll come on to the goal in a wee second. But regardless of that, regardless of whether McGregor comes in and plays well, I think just because we're so used to McGregor, anytime one of them slips, I guess we're going to have this conversation again, the same as last year. But talking about the game specifically, what do you think in terms of that goal? Obviously, it's a long diagonal. You could tell Livingston were definitely planning to get in between Barisic and Souttar. I think all of their 5 shots came from that kind of left-hand side of Rangers defence. They got us in that kind of first 5 minutes. What was your take on the goal? I don't want to say who was at fault, but there was a few things in there I think we could have done a little bit better, albeit it was a very good finish.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was definitely a few individual errors that definitely didn't help, and the culmination of that led to Livy taking the lead. There's, I think, a unilateral agreement amongst most of us that, you know, Dave Martindale's a very good coach. It wouldn't surprise anyone, as you rightly said, Adam, that he's no doubt given the directive to drive towards Souttar specifically. Because again, like you say, he's very much finding his feet within the team, and Goldson's a more experienced and you know, better defender. So absolutely go for that slightly weaker of the two, which makes perfect sense. I was a bit concerned looking back at the goal about how far John McLaughlin was off of his line, and I would expect him to be that far if, you know, the play was further up the park. But it's pretty much just in the edge of his box, and then it is a great finish. There's no doubt about that. I think nobody, for me, probably had a great game, but I think it's an anomaly more than, you know, a typically good game from a good player.
He's not going to play like every week, but he has strength and everything came off.
He does.
In the context that Cammy, a Livingston staff member, turned round to the press section after that goal, went, he couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo in training this week. And then he does that.
And listen, it's only going to happen against one team, and you know it's going to be us.
Oh, 100%. No. Oh, to be fair to Livy, they do give that lot a game.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, of course. I mean, as I say, just in terms of...
They're not Aberdeen.
Yeah. I think the point that you make, Adam, certainly a valid one, because I think what we need to be able to make sure that we don't do is compare keeper for keeper when it comes to, you know, in-game incidents. So, you know, McGregor would have saved that, McLaughlin would have come off his line, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to have to accept the fact that we've got a rotation of 2 very good goalkeepers. And I think, you know, always try to look in the positive with things. I think the positive aspect of that is that we're kind of spoilt for choice. Whether people acknowledge that or not, I don't know, because it feels very much like you've got a very loyal camp to Alan McGregor because of time served, and that's totally understandable. The most important thing, I think, for me is that those two continue to challenge each other for that position and to be able to try and better each other within training. I think it was a sore goal to lose, but I also think it was not typical of John McLaughlin. I don't believe he makes a lot of mistakes like that as well. So we can't hang him out to dry in that one. It will be interesting, I think, as David says, to see who we go with tomorrow, because I do think we will rotate and bring McGregor in for that European game. So, a disappointing goal to lose, I think, from a number of aspects, but fortunately it wasn't the decider.
David, we need to talk about, I guess, John Souttar. I think the reaction has been a little bit over the top, if I'm being honest, and I say that as someone who maybe didn't think he was coming in to be a first pick centre half. I think obviously Connor Goldson's comments today, probably the players are agreeing with that. It is obviously very early days. We have to caveat with he's playing in a back four. He's not played that for ages. He's on the left hand side of the centre halves. Again, something he's not used to. He's probably quite similar to Goldson and wants to do the same kind of things as him. So maybe he's having to learn not to be the dominant centre half in a team. He's getting more of the ball, all that sort of stuff. But that being said, there was probably some basic things in there in terms of physicality that we would have been expecting him to be a little bit better at in the hour or so that he got. How would you rate his performance overall?
Look, we can't sit here and try to persuade anyone that it was a good performance, because it wasn't. He was very poor, and he got substituted because he was poor. So he had a very poor debut. Okay, that's a fact. I think it's come out in the last 24 hours that he's recently suffered a bereavement, and we do forget these guys are human beings. But we also do forget that this is a hell of a jump for John Souttar. He's been playing at Hearts, very comfortable there. He comes to Rangers with the crazy level of expectation that comes, having to win every game, not a pressure that he's faced before, knowing that any mistake is going to be picked up upon. and playing in a slightly different position, playing on the left side of centre back. So all of those are factors that I think we do need to consider. Over and above that, it's really unfair to judge anybody on one game. Against that, it's Rangers, and people will, I think, make their mind up pretty quickly. Now it's difficult to get that back. We've seen an example of it recently with John Lundstrom, but I mean, John Lundstrom had to be absolutely fantastic against some of the best teams that we could come up against to get that sort of approval. I tend to think that we should just write this one off as it was a very bad day. There are things, though, that were concerning for me in terms of, can he play as a left-sided centre-back? And I think that's a deeper issue, because it's not natural. You're turning the wrong way. Everything needs to be thought about that you normally do by rote. And we've heard footballers talk about that before. We've certainly heard footballers talking about how it's different, even just changing flank for a fullback, because all your natural body movements have to alter. And on top of it, I think that we just had a day where Cammy mentioned earlier, the Livingston striker had, one of the best games you'll probably ever play, and John Souttar had probably one of the worst ones he's played for a long, long time. So far too early. Connor Goldson spot on. Far too early to be making your mind up or writing him off. But he does have a challenge for a spot here. Let's be honest. Goldson is going to play if he's fit. That right side of defence is sewing up. Goldson will take that role. And I don't think Rangers spend 3 million, possibly 4 million with add-ons on a player as backup either. Then you factor in, although it doesn't look as though it's going to happen very well, Philip Helander, his fitness could go up as well. So, and you have young Leon King, who's banging on the door of the first team. So it's going to be tough for him, but when you sign for Rangers, you're going to have tough periods. Comes through this, Adam will be flying.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't think, would he himself really expect to come in and be an undisputed first pick? I'm not sure anybody really would, of the signings that we've brought in. So interesting to see how it goes. Very early days. Andy Sawyer says on YouTube he hasn't travelled with the team. I think that's correct, isn't it, David? He didn't make the plane. I'm sure Chris Jack was reporting that earlier on. He hasn't went with the team to Belgium, so he won't be there tomorrow. Ben Davies is there. We've obviously got James Sands and Leon King, as you mentioned. We'll come on to previewing a quick preview of the Champions League game in a little bit, but let's move back into Livingston and talk about the first half. Cammy, wasn't really much to talk about. I think my frustration, certainly at halftime, was it was a little bit of ghost of Livingston past. Now, everybody gets the fear about Livingston and they get the fear about the plastic pitch. However, I think we're now at 14 wins out of 15 in all competitions, home and away, against Livingston, and the one that we didn't win was a draw. So that fear factor is fine, but it doesn't really bear out in terms of the results, and most of the performances have been pretty good. But the thing that chimed with me about the first half was it was very reminiscent of the start of the 55 season, where I think we drew 0-0, and it was just that kind of sterile possession, passing back and forwards. We had Souttar and Goldson, who are supposed to be really good on the ball with those incisive passes. It just wasn't happening. The ball was being funneled to Kent or Tavernier, and they were being asked to whip in a cross for Cholak, someone to try and get a scrap, etc. in that first half. It was all just a little bit jaded and maybe reminiscent of, I won't say the bad old days, but reminiscent of the way that we used to play in these type of games. What was your take? It was pretty uneventful in a Rangers kind of attacking sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And I think, listen, the game started perfectly for Livingston in terms of their setup, because scoring so early on in the game, they knew that you were just going to be able to, camp in your own box. And I think, watching the game back, there's various periods, as were mentioned there, when you've got crosses coming in, you're trying to be able to try and break through the middle. They had, I think, 10 men sitting within their box, which is not a new thing for us, right? Because we know that's what it's at. But Livingston were perfectly happy to be able to do that, because they would have taken a draw before kick-off anyway, and now they were sitting, with a lead. I think that the difficulty I had, Adam, and again, we'll kind of come on to this as we talk through the game and stuff, was it just felt to me that even when we had set-piece opportunities, we were really ineffective. Now, obviously, that, we will come on to how that kind of came back and certainly changed the scope of the game later on. But, the crossing going in, it wasn't hitting Cholak. Difficult to do, right? So I'll absolutely mitigate the fact that Livingston, put as many bodies in that box as they possibly could, shy of being able to try and get some sort of wicked deflection that was going to go in. And it felt just very kind of U-shaped for me. It would come from the left wing, then it would get moved out to Kamara or Lundstrom in the middle, then it would get put out to the right-hand side, and then back and forth and back and forth. And fundamentally, we have to get to a space where we're going to be able to try and get something a little bit more creative against that and work on being able to try and come up with something totally different. I've raised concerns. You guys will both know that I think, there are times where I think our crossing could be better. I think it could be more precise. And I think that if we know that we're going to have to see that, especially at home this season, where teams will come and just pack players in there to be able to get rid of whatever comes into the box, we have to have a better level of delivery. And that needs to kind of up its game a little bit more. The first half was not much to write home about. And I think for me, we were probably passive in our passing because it just felt like we were really struggling to be able to penetrate or break down that, two banks that were sitting there as well through the middle of the park. But yet you can see guys like Lawrence, you've seen what he's done already within the pre-season games, that he definitely can find space to be able to try and get shots off. So I know that was a bit of a growing frustration that we should be able to try and rotate that a bit more. John Lundstrom can do exactly the same. We've definitely seen that. So I think what we need to be able to do is use it as an opportunity just to learn how to be able to be a little bit more effective when we get such high amounts of possession and crossing.
I just, on that, I found the first half like first season Steven Gerrard against the pack defence, where Cammy's right, passing was too safe. Manager said that, passing was too safe. And what we ended up just doing was a side-to-side shuffle. Ball goes to Barisic or Ken or Tav, who put in a cross where there are 6 giant Livingston defenders surrounding Cholak, and the ball gets headed away. And it was repeat. And it was only in the second half when Tillman came on and we started playing through them that we began to get somewhere. I don't like 2 things about that midfield on Saturday. Rangers do not need, and I will die on this hill, 2 defensive midfielders in a game where we're going to have 80% plus possession. We don't.
I think I died on that hill in about 2019. But yeah,
yeah, we do not need Parkhead. Absolutely, Europe. Absolutely, right. Parkhead.
Go for it. Yep.
Maybe even Tynecastle, right, or maybe even Pittodrie. But you're going to have a lot of possession in these games. You need guys who can use it. Secondly, Gio seems to think that Glenn Kamara can play in an advanced position, either as an 8 or a 10. I'm not sure I agree. He has lovely touches. He is skillful, but he's not somebody that's going to... You saw the difference with Tillman, who can do it, right? I think that with Kamara, he's a brilliant player, but I don't like him in that role. And I felt in the first half that he was getting into decent positions, but nothing was coming out of it. And I think, as I say, you saw the difference in the second half when Tillman came in. And it's a strange one to say that, well, I wouldn't play Kamara away to Livingston, but it would be about my team if we're playing in the Champions League. But that's a fact. It's just a different role and a different type of position. For me, can I also say just a big shout out to the first name wrong of a new signing this season, to the Rangers fan who I think had a couple of pints, who shouted out that we should bring on Binman.
Oh, nice.
The thing I think for me that frustrates me about Kamara in games such as this is he just loves to take a touch. He just wants to be able to take a touch when it's pretty unnecessary, and then follow that up with it. There was one incident just at the tail end of the first half where if he'd played a ball first time to be able to get through, I'm fairly sure it could have been scored. I need to see it again. But he took a touch, and then the touch slowed him down as such that Livingston could then get a tackle and completely stop the play. And sometimes, I mean, I'm not going into Adam's world of, tiki-taka and all the rest of it, but sometimes quick first-time passing to break down a defence creates a space and opportunity. See, if you look at it, we saw the same thing happen to us by Dortmund at Ibrox, where quick one-touch pass and first-time balls within the box will create opportunities. And that is not Glenn Kamara. He just enjoys the possession side of it too much for me.
I think that's the point. Is it's great away in Europe or even at home in Europe because
wouldn't be out my team in those games. See away to
he wouldn't.
First name in the team sheet guy, but you're asking him to do a role. I don't think.
And I think even in that, it really depends how Lawrence and Tillman progress. They may become absolutely undroppable. But even in those games this season, call him a defensive 10 if you want to, like exactly what Cammy said. He almost plays like a pivot where he's back to goal and he can link things, but he's not going to be that guy who gets the ball on the edge of the box and threads passes through. I think he got one through for Goldson where he flashed it across, which was a really good pass, but more often than not, I think there's maybe a hesitation up there just because he's not that type of player. He can finish well. I think we've seen that against Leipzig and Benfica, I think, off the top of my head. He can, but for me, I think, as Darren Stewart has said on YouTube, I was hoping that we might see Lawrence on the right and Tillman through the middle against Livingston. And I think there's probably no coincidence that we did start to look a little bit better. We'll come on to that, but the last kind of flashpoint, I guess, of the first half, David, would be both involving Scott Wright. I guess there was one tackle by Livingston left back Philip Kankar, I think it is, which was really cynical when he got booked. Then there was another which, to be honest, wasn't that dissimilar, and it did happen very, very quickly after. We then had the very strange situation where they were given the opportunity, I guess, with the referee talking to him. He initially didn't talk to him, but then he kind of went and spoke to the captain and had a conversation with him. And then obviously all of a sudden, he did look like his head had gone a little bit. And then
boy had lost it. He did debut too fired up. Atmosphere got to him. Happens, right? I'm not saying that I lost my temper a little bit, but I had to stop myself from shouting, "I'm glad Neighbours is finished now, you Australian." Get it up you. But look, you mentioned it. He was having a tough time against Wright. And Wright's pace did him a couple of times, and he halved them. The first one was a booking. Rangers picked up 3 bookings in that first half, all of which were bookings, right? No issues whatsoever. They were all bookings. But then Kankar repeats his foul, his yellow card defence, and he gets... he doesn't get booked, which he should have. He would have been booked if he wasn't on a booking. I think that's the frustration as a football fan. And it doesn't just happen in Rangers games, right? But any football fan gets frustrated. It's a yellow card. It was a yellow card 5 minutes ago. It's a yellow card now. But he doesn't want to send a player off half an hour into a match against Rangers. So Kankar is allowed to stay. And of course, when he goes and says to the captain, he's got one more foul and he's red carded, unless the captain is a lunatic, he's going to turn around to David Martindale and says, sub him, because he's going to get sent off. So for me, it's inexplicable. You can't defend it, I think, as a decision. It was a poor decision. And again, it's not only just us. I watched the highlights of the other matches the other night. I'm sure many of the viewers and listeners will have watched the match highlights between the Hibs St Johnstone game, where it was shocking the difference in decisions between what was considered a red card and then another worse tackle that wasn't. So it's just a poor decision. And what worries me is VAR wouldn't have. You're going to still have to put up with that. I mean, the reason I've always wanted VAR is I think our linesmen are diabolical. In Scotland, I think they guess. I don't think they're fit enough. I don't think they're up with play. They're always these wee, no offence, tubby wee fat men huffling about in their, they kind of look like upturned turtles a lot of the time. And I think if you can get something that will say, yeah, that was off, that was on, because they guess. He guessed in the second half of the Cholak one. So that's why I want it. But that's not something VAR gets involved in. He would still have been allowed to do that. And I think that's where you need the SFA. Rather than, and I get why they do this, they jump to the defence of their officials because it's harder and harder to get people who want to be an official, and it's a tough gig and you do get shouted at. But I keep coming back to this point. The officials he got £1,000 for that. That's not bad for 3 hours work, okay? So you're paying them a good fee for this. The standard needs to be better, and they should be taking that guy aside, doing what they do in England. There should be, you're not getting a game for a couple of weeks because that was too poor a decision, and we can't be having that. But it never happens up here.
It doesn't at all. Which we'll come on to the referees again when we get into the second half, Cammy. I am struggling with the volume of comments coming in, so apologies if I've not got to ones that are.
You told me I've posted this. You told me that it's the first night we've not promoted that nobody will watch, and there's but I'm just checking and all the feeds. Yeah, no, that's just here, and the other feeds were over 1,000, and that's ridiculous, frankly.
Yeah, it's always nice to be humble.
I would have worn a hat and covered up my head, and then new people who haven't seen me before would think I don't quite look like a tomato that's had a traumatic experience.
I'm going to do a tactical one, obviously, because that is my want. But Graham makes a good point. Does Gio not set it up as Big Bad John as a number 6, Kamara as an 8, and Lawrence as a 10? He probably does, but when Livingston have got 10 men behind the ball, it's pretty much just Lundstrom, Souttar, and Golson sitting, and everybody else going any manny. So Kamara was pretty much up at the edge of the box, along with Lawrence in this one. Half time, Cammy, the decision was made to bring on Tillman. I hope, sounds a bit weird, but I kind of hope that it was a match fitness type thing. And I hope that Van Bronckhorst isn't maybe going to be as cautious and having those kind of two defensive midfielders. So, first game of the season, crazy pitch. I know Tillman's had a cruciate injury as well. Maybe all of these things come into the thinking for him. But he comes on at half time for Scott Wright, who I didn't think was terrible, but again, maybe similar to Kamara, Scott Wright has his uses in games, and maybe trying to break down a low block isn't really Scott Wright's forte. He's probably better on the break. So I can understand that substitution. I don't think he was terrible, but I can understand that substitution. Tillman comes on. Obviously, our first look at him in a competitive game, but I think that's probably the longest that we've seen him as well in the friendly. I think he only got half an hour against Spurs, if memory serves me correctly. I don't want to say he changed the game, as that's maybe a bit of a disservice to the goal scorers, but certainly when he came on, we started to see those little pockets opening up. The physicality that he's got to hold off players seems decent, playing with his back to goal as well. What did you think that change gave us?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on the point there about the physicality. I think he moved players, and I think that's a really difficult thing to do. I think you've seen that within, Alfredo Morelos can start to move guys. Roof does it, not necessarily using the physical part of it, but when you make intelligent runs and you make, intelligent movements into other areas of the park, then you'll bring players with you naturally. And I actually think Tillman's got a bit of both, if I'm being honest, because he can physically move players if he has to, and he can look to be able to try and use a little bit of awareness around these kind of probably his 20-yard perimeter to be able to open up space for other players being able to come into it. Touching on the Wright thing, I agree with you. I don't think it was terrible. I think Scott Wright takes a lot of heat, if I'm being honest, and I don't think it's entirely justified from the support. It wasn't a change which I think made the difference in terms of how the game was about to shape up. We'll probably come on to the next substitution that we'll probably delve a bit deeper into that. But for me, Tillman does look a level up. I think that we're going to see him in a European stage, which I think he's going to look very much at home in. And it's probably a good introduction to him as well in terms of coming into, that away game, shite pitch, difficult atmosphere because you're losing when you weren't expecting that whatsoever, and then being able to come into it. And he could definitely contributed to what happened in the second half. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Absolutely. David, we had a cross that actually found the target in this half, which was a rarity, I think, with the volume that we were thrown in. Kent with a lovely ball in, Cholak with an outstanding header. Be interesting to see this one in VAR. I've got a bit of sympathy, if that's allowed, with the assistant referee on this one. I think the angle there with Cholak being in front of him, I do think he was onside, but I can see why it wasn't given. It is a really incredible. It's an incredible header, so in that way you kind of assume there's no way that he was able to get that. But I have a little bit of sympathy there. Hopefully VAR can stamp that one out. But what was your thoughts on that?
Exactly that. I think he's positioning the suspect. He's 2 yards behind the play. That's going to give you an angle where you're staring at it like that, and of course then it's going to be difficult. And then immediately you're guessing. It is tough, look, being a linesman. I can't understand why any human being would want to be honest. A ref I kind of get, but why would you give up your afternoon to run up and down getting shouted at by strangers with a wee flag in your hand? Definitely some sort of masochism, but it's a tough gig, and that's why I've always thought if there's a way to just say, because offside's binary, it's not an opinion. You are or you aren't, and I would have liked it. And if he was offside, fine. Then you can get frustrated, but he is offside. He was unlucky with it, definitely. Already we've seen from Cholak, he's a good finisher. He had the one disallowed against Blackpool. unfortunately, but it was a good finish. He had that one, he had the one against Tottenham. So he can clearly finish, but you're probably going to need to make him chances. He's not that sort of rampaging striker the way Alfredo is, who'll come back and get the ball and make something from it, but who has very few of that quality. And I think that we saw that. But I thought Tillman got closer to him, which benefited him, and I think he was better in the second half. And it's unsurprising because Tillman was prepared to make that step forward quicker. Cammy touched one earlier about wanting too many touches, which we did in the first half. Tillman played at a faster pace, and because of that, he brought everyone else in. I want to give a wee shout out as well to Ryan Kent. Ryan Kent didn't have a good game overall on Saturday, but we talk a lot about bravery in football, and I think in Scotland we can get caught up that bravery's, going up for a high ball or getting involved in the physical stuff. Bravery can be when you're having a nightmare and there's 3 guys on you, still saying, "Give me the ball, I'll make something happen." And he does it, and Tav does it as well. They're both guys who go, no, I believe in myself. And in the end, he's nearly created a goal. He then does create a goal. He plays a vital part in us getting the victory. I think that is bravery as well. And I think sometimes we undervalue those type of players because it can't be easy. Gallant Pioneer there didn't have a good game, but he popped out with another assist. Exactly that. Guys who make differences, because it would have been perfectly human and natural to go, I'm having a stinker here, and kind of retreat into his shell, and he didn't. And I think that's really admirable. But yeah, to go back to the initial point, there is definitely something there with Cholak. We're kind of spoiled a wee bit by Alfie and that his all-round game, the amount of things he can do. Not many other forwards will be able to do that. But I think if we can go back to 4-4-2, jumpers for goalposts, big guy, wee guy, I think if you make decent opportunities for Cholak, he will put them away.
He will. Cammy, on the Kent point, and I guess Tavernier, because David mentioned that as well. I see it that they do get some criticism when things aren't going their way, and then the obvious comeback from people is, but they don't hide and they get on the ball. I think it's a little bit deeper sometimes. I think when there are these situations, I think the other players just say, "We'll just give it to them and they'll do something." Because
did you see us in the 90s in Europe? Get to Brian and Paul. They might have 7 guys on them, but just get to Brian and Paul.
So it's that expectation then, and the fans are thinking, "God, they've had loads of the ball today. Why are they not doing anything?" Whereas I don't want to pick anybody out, but maybe guys like Lawrence or Cholak haven't been as involved, or Scott Wright haven't been involved, and it's fallen to those 2 guys time and time again to kind of dig us out of a hole. And obviously both of them do. We'll come on to the goal in a wee second, but I guess both of them do, and I guess we can roll out those cliches of, that's what champions do, they get wins when they're not playing well. I think we kind of blew that to smithereens last year when we went behind 7 times in a row, and we came back and won the majority of them. But I think we're now at the stage where can we just not go behind and just try and play well and play the way that we want us to play from the off, and we don't have to rely on Kent and Tavernier or Morelos digging us out of holes. But the one man who does come on and dig us out a hole is Scott Arfield. Anybody who listens to me knows I'm a big Scott Arfield fan. I'm past the point of he's going to be a first pick, etc. I think that was 2 years ago. It's never going to happen. He's not that player anymore. However, what he can do, and I think David Martindale pointed it out as well, Cammy, was runs that he can make off the ball, even with those packed defences. The run that he makes across the edge of the box for Kent, just to put that little in-swinger in for him to glance into the box. Those are the things that you can't really teach. Tillman coming on, giving us that movement, and then Arfield giving us those runs to create a chance. I don't want to say it with nothing, but that's a pretty aimless cross coming in from Kent if Arfield doesn't get his head on it. It's that speed of thought and the movement to do that and break our deadlock, if you like, that makes Arfield crucial. He's never going to be a first pick anymore, but I think maybe we've seen why Van Bronckhorst, who does rate him very highly, why we've seen that he thinks he can probably still come on and play a part.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, just before I got into Arfield, I think, when you consider that cross that comes in from Kent and obviously the free kick that we're going to talk about in a minute from Tav, the common link is the fact that the two of them don't drop standards. They don't start to descale their efforts because they're not having a great game or their passing distribution has not been fantastic up to that point, because they want to keep going and keep trialing on it. Arfield, you're right, Martindale did mention in his post-match, and he'd said to his team at half-time, when they bring Arfield on, watch his runs, and literally the first thing he does is be able to do it. And what what I loved about the Arfield goal was, if you watch it again, he knows that's going in the minute it's left his head. He doesn't even have to really look to be able to make sure that it beats the keeper. He knows exactly what angle he needs to get that on in order to be able to get it across the keeper's left-hand post, which is fantastic. I think that he can... One of the principal reasons as to why we won our 55th league title is because of Scott Arfield. He came in at times and hit a really great run of form when we really, really needed it. And he's definitely able to contribute, as we saw on Saturday. I think kind of coming back to that point as well, though, Adam, is that you're also then saying that he provides you with something a little bit different, which is exactly what we needed at that point. And he was alive when probably Livy just switched off ever so slightly. And that's the fine margins, because, you don't follow that runner and the guy's going to punish you. And that's not every player that can be able to try and do that. So for me, he absolutely does have a part to play with that. We are all hoping that we're going to have a strenuous season. And what I mean by that is loads of fixtures, because we want to be involved in every cup competition we can get into and go as far in them as we possibly can. Scott Arfield will have a part to play within that, I've got zero doubt. But again, like you say, when you've got the opposition manager already calling out the fact that he's going to be a problem when he comes on, predicting that was going to happen, I think that level of impact speaks for itself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm just running through some of the comments. We've obviously had some...
Mute yourself there. Like,
I did, yeah.
You hadn't muted on the screen, but your voice decided. Yeah, that I thought that would happen to me. But on Cammy's point there about Arfield, I love this. He's from Livingston, as we know. I think that's 5 in his last 5 against them. And Livingston are so good to him. They always give him extra tickets so he can get his family in. And Martindale was saying after, he's like, we keep, he keeps impressing them when he brings. It was a really good finish as well.
It was. And then just a few minutes later, David, we have James Tavernier with his first of the season. I think that's actually his first free kick, and Rangers' first direct free kick goal since that ridiculous one at Tannadice, December 2020.
Wow.
This one wasn't as ridiculous. What I liked about this was kind of the comments that came out afterwards, where Goldson noticed a bit of a weakness in the Livingston goalkeeper's setup. I think Barisic tried to exploit it, but it was maybe just a little bit too close and central. Barisic's one for the type of free kick taker he is, but Tavernier, we used our kind of dummy wall quite well. It was Tillman and someone else, can't remember who it was, possibly Kent, that was in it.
Lad, Tillman. So he will unsight you, yeah.
It was I was going to say it's a strange free kick. You don't see many of those free kicks going in, which I guess does speak, David, to maybe there was a bit of a gap in their defensive area. We're not complaining. It was a great goal 2 minutes after. Obviously, we get Arfield's goal, and that's us really kind of home and hosed from there.
Yeah, I thought that the one you referred to, the Barisic one, there was a noticeable space. And I was sitting with Stevie from Four Lads, and he said to me, he's leaving a lot on that side. And we wondered if it was deliberate, as in... a kind of bit of a psychological thing of, look, I'm giving you that, and that's where he would be, heading for. But it wasn't, clearly. It was just he hadn't lined the wall up correctly. He found himself, I think, Adam, behind the wall, which is the last place a goalkeeper wants to be. They cover one side, you cover the other. And they spotted, Goldson had spotted, he said to Tav, look, there's going to be an area there, which is all well and good, by the way. You still have to hit it. It's easy enough to say that, but you still need to put it there. And that's exactly what he did. And it was such a rush after not a great performance. The 2 goals in a couple of minutes, and you remember why you're back at FIT by how much you love it. But I honestly don't think that anyone could say Rangers didn't deserve the victory, because yes, we were poor in the first half. We didn't create anything. No doubts about that. And Livingston took advantage of some awful defending, really poor defending, and got the lead. But in the second half, Rangers played really well, and were all over Livingston. And it's funny because as a fan, I'm sitting there going, it's going to be one of those days, when the ball came back off the post and Tillman's shot was saved, and then I think it was Lundstrom had one that just went past the post, the offside goal. You're going, it's no other day. That's a football fan. But I was also thinking that if I was a neutral when I was just watching the game on a Saturday morning on the telly, I would be going, there's a goal coming here. It's inevitable. They're not going to be able to hold it because Rangers are battering them. And thankfully that did prove to be the case.
Absolutely. Cammy, I guess it is a difficult place for teams to go. Obviously, we had a good few results there. I think someone was at Brian said a couple of right back at the start there that Dolly Menga 2 years ago. I think everybody feels like they've lost 2 years of their life, but that was actually 2018, September 2018 that Livingston beat us 1-0 there, which is obviously 4 years ago. So has been a quick 2 years, but yeah, we have had a very good run there. The pitch, new signings coming in, Cammy. We could also argue as well, Davies, Yilmaz, Matondo, Morelos will all probably be first picks when they come in. So we're missing kind of half of what we think or hope is going to be a very important team for us. If we want to be critical, and if I can be critical, I do think we need some more quality chances from open play. Even you think Tillman's chance where he was in the box and he had it at the keeper, that comes from kind of a Barisic cross-come shot. Tillman's chance as well that he maybe just flashes wide, comes from a Tavernier cross. They're great, fair enough, but I do want to see a little bit more of what we started to see in the second half, which was Tillman and Lawrence interchanging, trying to get balls down the sides, trying to get flashbacks, etc. A win is a win. Big players pulling out of holes is great, particularly on the first day, particularly difficult conditions, etc., as we said. But moving forward, they've got 2 home games coming up against Kilmarnock and St Johnstone. I would like to start to see us getting into those situations where we're creating kind of high quality chances that aren't from set pieces and crosses.
Yeah, and I think, it's Gary Howden's mentioning this there on YouTube as well, saying it's first game of the season, but it's a huge 3 points. I couldn't agree with that more. I think that's absolutely bang on the money. You're right, there is this cloud, I think, that kind of hangs over us whenever we think we have to go to Almond Vale, the Tory, whatever it's called today. It'll change its name tomorrow. But I think, most of us have kind of moved past that now in terms of just trying to look at it with a degree of logic. But it's the season opener. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff. We're wearing a new strip. All these other variables that come into it, the most superstitious among us were thinking, yeah, it's definitely lined up to beat us. I think for me, you're right. I want to be able to try and see more creativity that we can get from that. But to go back that first step, there's an element to that where I want to see players being able to try and use the ball effectively, but take the risks that we've been talking about before. Be brave and take a risk that means that you're going to do something effective with the ball rather than just simply getting rid of it. As in, I'm not passing it because I think something will happen here. I just don't want to be the one that loses possession. And for me, the most important thing out the back of that is know that you can dig yourself out of that hole. You look at, in retrospect now, we've got a huge result against a team that are well coached. They know how to play to their strengths. That pitch, I don't care what anyone says, I've played on it personally. It's terrible. How that is a top level pitch, I've got no idea. But all of these things that come into it, I still think our quality would show throughout, and thankfully it certainly did on Saturday. What we need to be able to try and do, however, is just accept the fact that we can see where we've had some success, but look on the areas of development. And I think that area, that kind of phase within the middle of the park, Adam, as you know yourself, within how to be able to try and break down those packed defences, we need to be able to probably allow the players to say, look, if you think you need to, then take a shot from range, play that incisive pass. Maybe it's a loop ball over the top, but vary your ideas so you keep your opponent guessing, because we have the quality to be able to break that down as long as we are, again, like you say, we've got the ingenuity to be able to do that. So we need to probably encourage and empower the players to do a bit more of that, I think. And that's going to be on Van Bronckhorst.
Absolutely. David Allen Weir is asking, can we make this a regular Monday event, please? I think we'll either do a Monday or a Friday, but maybe not both. We'll see how things go.
Yeah. I mean, why not? We've done it now. I don't need to all of them do it.
No, well, you need to do Mondays. So if it's a Monday, then it's you. But
well,
Fridays,
I've been looking to move.
Reduce your hours a little bit.
I think these are ready. I think
Are you going part time? Is that what you're saying? Is it
quarter time?
Quarter time, yeah.
No, I am empowering you.
Oh yeah.
To go off and I'm letting you fly. Absolutely, we'd be happy to do it. I don't want to be doing it like every night. There are other options available in fan media that you can go and do that if you want to say this. So, but yeah, we'll certainly. But I do think still that I am more suited to the non-visual podcasting side of the business. But we've got some handsome and good-looking podders. We'll get them on more than us. Somebody said earlier we were the 3 stages of baldness.
I like
think
that one.
that's a really fair comment. But
I'm just happy I'm in the middle. I always want to be in the middle. We're going to have someone more bald than me on every video. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, we certainly don't lack for bald guys, but I'm comfortable in my Rangers Danis at this stage of the game, right? At least one show this season will be dedicated to why 4-4-2 is the best formation, why you should always have a man on the posts, for example. I'm actually, as soon as we finish this podcast, I'm actually going to go outside and stand on the post, because it's just I want to be ready at any given point. I think it's important for us to Britain won the war by having men on the post. That's, you might not read that in your history books, but that's probably a fact.
Absolutely.
David likes to regurgitate the old, I've never seen a zone score a goal.
I've never seen a zone score a goal.
Exactly.
Well, I haven't. And
I'm trying to think of a player who's got
Called
zone in his name and failing miserably.
But I equally, I didn't think I'd ever seen a Rangers player score a free kick since Albert's, and there on Saturday one happened. So happening now. But yeah, so we'll be back. I hope people have enjoyed it tonight. We've enjoyed. This was just a test run. I might, Sally, my wife, folks, hates my curtains, and they are really ugly, the curtains in my room, in my office, and I accept they're awful, but she doesn't like them, and she wants me to change them, and therefore I can't, because you can't let your partner win arguments, because otherwise they get used to it and expect it. So that's why they're staying. But I'll get a background or something. I'll get one of the Rangers ones that's got all the sponsors except Sinshaw in it.
Yeah,
stick that up behind me.
You can get a green screen as well. We can green screen it up so you can have whatever you like.
Can I have hair?
Yeah, sure. Oh, here we go. We've got a winner, Zinedine Zidane. There you go.
That's
absolutely
outstanding. That is outstanding. I want to have a kid now, just to call him Zinedine.
Steady on. That's not a good idea.
Magnificent.
Just before we finish up, then let's do a quick 5 minutes on tomorrow night's game. I can't believe I'm going to have to try and pronounce this name, but we're going Union San Gilwa, I think.
Well done.
David's team have travelled today. Obviously, we hear John Souttar hasn't made it. Ryan Kent, I think, hasn't made the trip as well. No. It's going to be interesting. There was a comment earlier on. I can't remember who it was. Sorry. Will it be a possibility that we might see Matondo on the left, and then maybe open up Tillman wide right? What's your thoughts on that?
We suddenly have options, don't we? We've got. I don't think anybody would be upset if we saw the three of Matondo on the left, Tillman centrally, and Lawrence on the right, with the ability to interchange as well. You can swap round as the game changes. But Lawrence played primarily last season for Derby on the left, so I think that he might get the nod there. And of course, Fashion Sakala can play on the left. I think he's more comfortable at the left side of the forward. I would maybe argue that he doesn't have the tactical discipline for an away match in Europe, and I think the manager likes that. That said, it wouldn't stun me if you see Scott Wright start, because of that tactical discipline that the manager likes, and the manager really does like Scott Wright. So that wouldn't stun me. In terms of the midfield, you mentioned earlier, I wouldn't go with all three of the defensive midfielders, but this is for me a Kamara and Lundstrom game, or a Jack and Lundstrom game. I do like Jack next to Lundstrom. I think that there's a chemistry there. I think they complement each other really well, and I do think there's a good chemistry there that you don't get, for example, with Jack and Kamara. Famously, it's become a thing. Yilmaz is there. Do you chuck him into a game this big? It's maybe a wee bit unfair. If something goes wrong, he makes an error because he doesn't know where he's supposed to be. So I don't think the manager will do that. But no, look, I'm confident of a good performance this round. I do think we'll get through this round. The next one is going to be a huge step up in class, realistically. But I do think that we should have enough in our locker to be able to overcome USG. But they've been playing for a couple of weeks, Adam. They had a really good season last season. And I don't think you can rule out when sides who maybe don't have a lot of this isn't somewhere they go. It's not a run-of-the-mill fixture for them to be at this level of European competition. You have to take into account that there's almost a kind of intoxicating feel for them and their supporters, and you've got to be aware of that. You know, it's a bubble you need to burst when you go and you play a side there. So it will be a big challenge for us tomorrow night. But yeah, I can see us going with a 4-2-3-1. I think Sands will play. And in terms of people have been asking, I did ask Rangers earlier about Ryan Kent. They said it's not serious, it's not a long-term issue or anything, but the game too soon for him.
Cammy, the boys on the preview over on the Patreon site, actually you can see the ticker running along there. So if you're not a subscriber, get yourself over to heartandhand.co.uk/Patreon. You can sign up there, up to 5 shows for as little as $1.99 a month. But the boys on the preview were saying that USG are very similar to most Belgian teams. Certainly, if you remember when we played against Antwerp, Cammy, they're a bit wild at the back, not so good at the old defending in the Belgian league. Sakala and Matondo have ran riot in consecutive seasons there. Could it be as simple as one on one flank, one on the other flank, and see how things go? They've proven they can play against these type of players. And in Matondo's case, I think he actually scored against USG last year. Could that be something that we do in the absence of maybe guys like Morelos and Kent tomorrow?
I mean, you could do. I don't think there's an overwhelming need to go gung ho, because what you get to remember is USG will not have appreciated getting us out of the hat. They would not have appreciated the fact that they've got to play the second leg at Ibrox, which will be packed. I've got zero doubt about that. Everyone will be looking forward to that. So I think they'll think that they have to do something at home, because the away leg for them will be very, very difficult. So we could potentially just sit and absorb that, hitting the counter with the guy's pace that you've just mentioned there, in terms of whether it's Matondo, whether it's Sakala, or whatever. But we do have pace to burn with these guys and stuff as well. I think David touched on the point earlier on. I'm not overly keen on Sakala in terms of some of his decision making at times, but let's face it, he can drag players with him when he absolutely puts the afterburners on. All that being said, I don't believe that there's easy games in Europe. I think that when you talk about qualifiers especially, these clubs see the financial incentive that's involved within here in terms of being able to get into it. So they'll absolutely look to be able to try and do whatever they possibly can for it. And I've sat with you chaps as we've watched qualifiers, which I'm glad to say, after the event turned out to be an absolute walk in the park. So I'd rather be cautious and optimistic than turn around and go, well, let's go in there with an overabundance of swerve and arrogance and stuff. So I've got zero doubt the manager will set them up in a way to make sure that we go out there with a concise performance. Would you say to me, could I take a draw to now and be comfortable at? Yeah, of course I would, because I think if we take them back to Ibrox, I'm very confident in what we can do there. Most important thing, I don't think that we'll see too many changes. I think, for some of the players it will be a little bit early. I know that in some of the comments people have said about Davies and various other things, I've got no overwhelming need to rush these guys in. Perhaps we give them some time at home against Kilmarnock on Saturday, and then we see what we can do in the away leg if there's a necessity for it. But there's no point in bringing players in just for the sake of it. I think we've got enough in there that we can do that. And again, I would be very comfortable with the Goldson-Sands partnership at the back, because I don't think they're mugs, but I think they will look to be able to try and exploit us where they can.
Yeah, David, I think Cammy's kind of spot on there. We think we've got 3 home games coming up after this one. Obviously, Kilmarnock at the weekend. Maybe that's the time for Davies and Yilmaz to come in, because although we're saying USG, we got to a final last year, we should be favourites in this game, yada, yada, yada. I think maybe Souttar not being there complicates it slightly, but certainly I think Sands and Barisic for this game should be absolutely fine. They've obviously had the full pre-seasons. Barisic in particular was looking quite good. Maybe wasn't as good at the weekend. Sands, I think, has come on in every game so far and looked pretty good. I would probably go with that. I was going to say tried and tested. I'm not sure Sands is, but rather than just throwing people in for their debut, I think maybe Ibrox on Saturday feels better for both of them.
Yeah, I think that there's the natural thing as football fans to go, let's get them on, because we're desperate to have a look at them and we're excited by them. But give them a few more days in training, a chance to actually sit and watch, again from the bench and see close up the guys will be playing with. I think that's always important. For me, there's too much on the line here, I think, to risk. And as I say, I would be worried that one of them goes in, has a howler, makes a mistake, and suddenly they're up against it. Whereas instead, I'd be comfortable tomorrow night going with Barisic and, as you said, Sands, and then at the weekend, Kilmarnock, with all due respect to them at Ibrox, again, a Derek McInnes team at Ibrox, I think we're going to have a lot of possession. Can we put it that way? So, I think that's the sensible way to go with it. Also, I'm still scared, as you mentioned there, about saying we were in the final last year and we should beat them tomorrow. Somebody said on the thread, don't take them lightly. Kaunas, 2008.
100%. That's exactly it.
You cannot. Last year is gone. It's wonderful. We loved it. It's done. It's in the books now. It's not a thing. If we don't turn up tomorrow night focused, ready, and sharp, then we'll struggle.
And we've got that safety net, obviously, of the Europa League, but I hope the team aren't going in there thinking that as well. I think most of them would be very, very keen to get into the Champions League. So hopefully this is the first step on it tomorrow. Okay, I think that will do us. But before we go, we've got a very, very well timed.
Oh, I cannot. I don't believe that.
Very well timed. I don't even know who Darren Stewart is, but he has.
Does he work for a publishing company?
He's the guy who messaged you earlier on saying, "Do you want me to plug the book on the live show later?"
I cannot believe that.
Here it is, Darren. Darren, here is the book. If you want me to plug it, I will. I don't like to plug it too much, but if you want, I will. This is the first copy. Came through the door. It will be out.
Am I in it?
You're in it? Yeah, I told you you're on the first page.
Right, I'll take it.
Okay, good. That's me got 10 sales now, which is good. But yes, it is available 2 weeks today. You can order it just now, heartandhand.co.uk/Gerard's Blueprint. Simon
I can't believe you
yes.
didn't get the link saying Adam's book.
Do you know, I was thinking about doing it on the hoof there, but I haven't. Simon Meek, yes. Anyone that's pre-ordered, I'll just sign them all. I'm acting like there's lots of them. There really isn't, but I will sign them all. It won't take me too much time. But 2 weeks today.
Will you write me a sexy message?
Oh, maybe.
Will you write like, to David, what are you wearing? Love, Adam.
Yeah. Okay. I will do that. Absolutely. If you're buying 8 of them, I'll write whatever you want.
Very much a spare part at this point now. I think it's a ball bag thing that you two just need to.
There's a lot of love in the room, Cameron.
Yeah, you're ruining my plug. 2 weeks today, it's out. Buy it on the website if you want. You might not get it for launch day now because it's too late. But yeah, buy it, please. Thank you. And Darren, well done, Darren. That was well timed. What a great first show this has been. Okay, that will do us for tonight. David, this was new and exciting and very much enjoyable. So thank you for allowing us to do it, first of all, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it only took you how long you've been talking about this? 4 years?
3 years.
Yeah. Never let it be said that I don't listen to people when they hammer something at me for 4 years. But yeah, I thank you. Seriously, thank you to everyone who watched. I was saying to Adam, and he'll tell you that, I was like, if we get a 50 or 60 the first night, I'd be over the moon with that. So, wow, you guys are amazing. Thank you for doing this. It's just outstanding. And hopefully next week, as we're more used to it, or next time we do it, we'll be able to take more questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Now that we know actually how it works, we can have one person running the questions and one person commenting. I didn't really appreciate the numbers of, oh, look, what was that? Donnie Robertson now, can you put up a link for the book? Oh, okay. If you insist, we'll get a link up for the book on YouTube.
That is pure opportunism from Donnie to get his name up on the screen there.
Probably, yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I admire that. You should get a free book for that. Send Donnie a book.
I'll send Donnie one of your 8 books.
I think everyone who's joined us tonight should get a free book.
Okay, that's us done. Cammy, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, boys. And listen, as David says, we're always overwhelmed by the amount of support we get when we do events like this and stuff as well. So thank you for taking your time on a Monday night to come in and join us. It's always a pleasure to do it.
Absolutely. Like I said, the comments, etc., have been overwhelming. I've tried my best to use only the PC ones and tried my best to get the topical ones on. Hopefully those of you who didn't get a comment discussed, we can do it next time. Hopefully we're back on Friday with extra. I'll have to see if I can get someone else willing to come on video with us. But fingers crossed we're back talking about a Rangers win and previewing Kilmarnock. Thank you all for joining us and hope you have a nice night.